Hey there and welcome back to Kingdom Come Deliverance. My name is Pete and today we complete the third and final part of this Getting Started Guide miniseries. Last time we left off, after completing the second half of the tutorial in Tornberg, depending on how thorough you were, your Henry should now be in the possession of quite a few valuables, your speech skill should be at or close to level 4 already, same for your lockpicking skill. So, with Tornberg and the return to Skalitz behind you, Henry will wake up in the Rattay Mill, and like I said last time, this is where the game really begins to open up, although we will not stray too far from the path that is laid out in front of us, at least not initially. Now, you'll always wake up in the mill around 2 in the afternoon, which gives you plenty of time before the night sets in. So, speak to Theresa, pick up and eat the bread from the cabinet, and also help yourself to some food from the pot. From this point onwards, you'll want to make sure to keep your nourishment between 50 and 100 for 5 straight days to unlock the Balanced Diet Vitality perk. Then take a closer look at the chest next to the bed. It has all your gear, not only the stuff you had on you after your return to Skalitz, but also all the items you may have stored in the Tornberg Inn, thanks to KCD's shared inventory system. The only things missing will be Sir Radzig's sword and, crucially, any lockpicks you had. From this chest, you'll want to grab a few essentials, put together an outfit that gets you to a charisma score of 10 or higher, including the +2 bonus from the flower power perk, but you don't need to have any armor just yet, and you can also leave the truly valuable stuff inside for now. It makes more sense to sell it instead of using it. As always, try to keep your carry weight as low as possible, and don't worry, you will return to the mill again shortly. Do make sure to grab a torch though, otherwise you could get into trouble later. Outside, talk to Miller Peshek, who will ask you for help paying off your debt. Now, if you followed this guide, you likely have the 100 groschen it takes to pay him off, but I strongly recommend saving that money and agreeing to help him.
I think I've already heard more than I need to know. You've got the tongue of the devil himself. If you tried hard enough, I bet you could justify sodomy with a goat.
Very importantly, make sure to talk to him a second time after this initial conversation and ask him to teach you lockpicking. Not only will this give you 15 lockpicks for free, it will also allow you to practice lockpicking on an easy training chest. This chest keeps relocking after being picked, so keep going until it no longer does. Depending on how much XP you have already earned, this could get you to lockpicking level 5. Once the chest has been exhausted, you can pick another easy one behind the door to your left, and there's also some food in the basket to the left of the door that you can take without it being considered stealing. If you take the short path to the river, you'll find another pot you can eat from and a basket with a stone on top of it containing 2 bottles of moonshine. Now at this point, if you have the A Woman's Lot DLC installed, you might want to talk to Theresa again, although chances are that she's resting and can't be spoken to. Either way, whenever you get a chance, you can ask about and acquire Mutt, the dog you encountered during your return to Skalitz, and you can also trigger Theresa's quest line by speaking to her, allowing you to experience the Skalitz raid from her perspective. In this guide we're not going to do that, but if you have the DLC, it can be worth taking Mutt into some of the early quests. You won't need him immediately, but he can be very useful in one of the next stages of the main quest. Also, from a completionist perspective, Mutt brings with him the Houndmaster skill, and using him as a sidekick is required to max that out. If he's dismissed, he will simply return to the Rattay Mill.
Wanna go with me? Come on then, we'll get on like a house on fire.
And while we're on the topic of DLC, all other DLC have specific quest lines that can only be triggered after a certain point in the main quest has been reached, and that's still pretty far into the future and thus won't be covered in this guide. Now, time to crack on with Peshek's quest. You'll find a spade leaning by the cart near the wood storage. Take it and head out to the road, turn right towards the building with the white tents. This is the Rattay bathhouse that you might want to bookmark for later. There's some marigold growing in the area, and you can also find a small camping site behind the bathhouse with another pot to eat from. These pots, by the way, are scattered all over the map, and they regenerate, so you can eat from them at least once per day. Behind the pots, turn right, cross the bridge, follow the path towards the house. There's nothing of value inside, so we can skip it, and turn right, up and into the forest. Keep following the path up the hill until you see another house, the Executioner's home. Before the small gate in the fence, head left through the bushes and towards Gallows Hill. This will pretty much take you directly to the grave you need to dig up. Once you discover that the body has no ring on it, the game sends you back to Peshek, who in turn will only send you back to the executioner's house. I would like to argue that Henry is smart enough to come up with the idea that the executioner took the ring himself, so let's skip the return to Peshek and talk to the executioner right away. For some extra speech XP, ask him about the buried convict directly, and then pick the speech option but refuse to pay. Afterwards, initiate another conversation and pick the get him out of the house option. Shortly after, he will run to the mill. Wait a few seconds until he's out of sight and go to work, ignoring the barking dogs. After all, their master has other matters to attend to. The chest in the entryway contains roughly 30 groschen and some clothing. The ring is in the first chest in the room on the left, together with some Savers schnapps. There's another chest in the room that you can pick for XP, but it doesn't have anything of value inside. At this point, you will likely have reached stealth level 3 and have a perk point available, and really you can't go wrong with any of the stealth perks, apart from Daring Debonair. This perk is widely considered to be almost useless because it does not work the way it is written. Instead, you will benefit from the bonuses to strength and vitality only if you are caught committing a crime, which is generally not a good idea, especially in the early game. Regardless, the number of perk points you earn allows you to select all perks in the stealth tree, so you really only decide the order in which you take them. Still, I would recommend saving the perk point until level 5 to unlock both Crouching Chameleon and Stealth Kill in one go. Now, with the ring in your possession, return to Peshek. If you're fast enough, you can catch the executioner talking to him, but don't worry, despite sounding like it, he won't confront you.
I'll kick that fucker's ass!
Exhaust all dialogue options with Peshek, who will send you to the miller in Kohelnitz and offer to purchase stolen goods from you at this point. However, just like any other person who buys them, he will only give you a fraction of their worth, but there is another way if you're patient. Simply store the stolen goods in your chest for a few days, and the stolen tag will eventually vanish, allowing you to sell them at full price to any trader. Alternatively, moving far away from the place where an item was stolen also removes the stolen tag, and this is why most of the stolen gear in your chest is not marked as such. It has been there for several days now, and Rattay is also decently far away from Skalitz and Talmberg. Now, we're not done with Peshek just yet. Up next, we want him to teach us pickpocketing. Like lockpicking, pickpocketing takes a while to get used to and is, in my opinion, the inferior way of obtaining valuables, but the completionists among you might want to max it out, so let me briefly explain. While out of your target's sight, you hold the pickpocketing key. The longer you hold, the more time you have to rummage through the target's pockets. Once the color starts to shift towards red, let go and the pickpocketing menu opens. You'll have to manually move the cursor to the right spot, reveal what's inside, and also confirm that you want to take it. That's not all though, you also need to move back to the top to safely end the pickpocketing attempt, otherwise you'll get caught.
That's the way. I hardly noticed you were there.
Having low conspicuousness, visibility and noise stats is crucial to not be seen. All of those are influenced by the clothing you wear, and targeting people who are asleep also increases your odds. I recommend training with Peshek for a little while until you get the hang of it. You can ask him again and again to teach you, and it takes only a few attempts to get to pickpocketing level 2, and you can pick your first perk. If you actually want to do some pickpocketing, then select the Comrade perk, which might be a little confusingly worded, but essentially just gives you a big boost to how long you can safely rummage through someone's pockets, even if you don't have exactly matching charisma stats. If you don't want to pickpocket, then go with Secret Pockets, which gives you more money from slain enemies. Now at this point it should be early evening, but the day is not done yet. Making sure that you have grabbed a torch and Baron's cup from your chest, let's head up to Rattay itself. Visiting Miller Wojciech would simply take too long on foot. Following the same path you took earlier, run past the bathhouse and stay left until you reach the gate guards. When presented with a dialogue check, the speech option is the one that gets you past them. Heading into the city, be on the lookout for Baron and his wife, who are having an argument near some tents. Like many others, the two are survivors from Skalitz who have taken refuge in the city, and life is not exactly kind to them. Speak to Baron, although his first conversation won't give you a chance to present him with his cup. You could talk to him a second time to give it to him, but doing so would waste an opportunity for precious speech XP, so instead try to locate a surviving Kunesh who often hangs around by the stone stairs just around the corner. Reminding him of his debt brings up a dialogue check in which you want to select the charisma option to succeed. Kunesh will reveal information about the cup that you already have, and at this point it is up to you to decide. You can give Baron both his cup and the 50 groschen you found in Scarlet, keep the money and just hand over the cup, or keep everything to yourself and sell the cup to a trader. After all, it is quite valuable. Giving him everything gives you a substantial boost to your reputation with the Scarlet's refugees, which can be advantageous in dialogue or later when you pick perks that build upon high reputation. Still, I don't have a clear recommendation here. Selling the cup and keeping the money can set you up nicely too.
You don't even know how much you've helped us. And if you know my wife, then you'll know you've just saved my life.
Following this encounter, you should also be able to locate a vagabond in blue trousers who will offer the rob the rich, give to the poor activity. He wants you to steal 50 groschen from a guard, something you best not attempt with your meager pickpocketing skills while he's patrolling. Instead, it's best to wait until he's asleep. Alternatively, give the vagabond some of your own coin, don't worry, he'll pay you back half, for a quick reputation boost. Although, with money being tight in the early game, I don't recommend this. At this point, head to the nearby castle, meet some familiar faces near the stairs, climb all the way up and watch a lengthy cutscene, which eventually unlocks the Awakening achievement. Once you regain control of Henry, you might want to get out a torch, otherwise guard might stop you to pay a 10 groschen fine, as walking around without a torch at night is forbidden. If you want to do a little stealing, the upper floor has a room to the left with an easy lock chest that contains 2 books, while the first floor has an unlocked room to the right with a hard lock chest that contains some goblets and chalices, and 2 more can be found in the easy lock chest in the kitchen at the end of the corridor. With a bit of luck, you can also get into the room on the left side, if its occupant is inside, where you can take a treasure map from the bookcase, and this is not considered stealing and can therefore be done even with eyes directly on you. All other rooms unfortunately have nothing of value or very hard locks that you probably won't be able to pick yet. Be wary though, your reputation in Rattay starts off pretty low, so guards are more likely to stop and search you, and they will confiscate any stolen goods they might find.
What the fuck is this? All these things are stolen. You'll be leaving that here? Got it, laddie.
With the night slowly setting in, you will most likely not be able to train with Captain Bernard to continue the main quest right away, as he only appears near the training ground during the day. If you wait until about 10 in the evening, you might check your map to find that the guard you have to steal those 50 groschen from has retired to a building in the center of town. Getting inside is easy if you use the first floor side door, but this is a building that several guards sleep in, so be very careful once stepping inside. Your target will most likely be in one of the upstairs bedrooms, but there might be other guards nearby. If that's the case, I'd recommend coming back another night, but if he's alone in the room, you can rob him, either by pickpocketing or choking him out. That's perhaps a little safer and also offers a vastly expanded inventory to pick from. Take the money and whatever else you feel like, and then hightail it out of there and to the other end of town, east towards the training grounds for which you should have a map marker. Make sure to stay out of the way of any guards who might search you, and also have your torch out. The vagabond is likely already asleep at this point, so we're saving him for the next day. Once you reach the training grounds, follow the road passing them on the left, and shortly after, you'll reach the Broken Wheel Inn. While there are 2 more taverns inside the town, this is the only one where you can rent a bed for the night. Approach the innkeeper to do exactly that. The room you'll be assigned has another shared chest that you can store any stolen goods inside to avoid losing them should you get searched on the next day. Don't forget to also grab some food, either from your chest or by purchasing it from the inn. You'll want to eat enough so that your nourishment does not drop below 50 during the night. Alternatively, you can steal some food from the inn's cellar, accessible via an easy locked door just outside the main taproom. Down here you can also find another treasure map located on some barrels to the right. Once you have everything you need, head up to your room and sleep, again making sure to keep nourishment over 50 while recovering as much energy as possible. Two things I should mention at this point. From now on hardcore mode with the negative somnambulant perk, it's possible to wake up elsewhere, for example on the outskirts of town. It usually won't take more than 1 in-game hour to get back to where you slept, but keep this in mind for time-sensitive activities. Also, the negative nightmares perk gives you a debuff lasting for 2 hours after waking up, so ideally you wake up 2 hours before you need to be at the top of your game. Speaking of which, on the next morning you should receive a new quest called Rattay Tourney, as your visit to the castle the evening before has triggered the first of the weekly tournaments happening in Rattay. While this tournament can be a decent moneymaker, it can also be quite difficult to win, especially if you're playing on hardcore mode. You'll get a chance to train a bit beforehand, but still, if you're not yet entirely comfortable with the combat system in KCD, it might be better to skip this one. If you want to enroll, and you're confident that you'll win, you can visit Miller Peshek and bet on yourself beforehand. If you succeed, you'll earn 5 times your wager, up to 500 groschen, despite Peshek stating that you'll only get double. Personally, despite its difficulty, I actually recommend taking part, even on hardcore mode, but there's a few things we need to do first. It's going to be a busy day. Now, after breakfast, it's time for combat training with Bernard. Bring some armor, but don't equip it just yet. In fact, since you'll have to endure a few hits yourself, make sure to take off any gear you don't want to see needlessly damaged. I highly recommend doing the basic training first. This will be a repetition of your training session with Combat Master Vanyak and Skalitz, which also means that the bit where you need to land chained hits can be cheesed for a little extra combat XP. During the zone change and feint tutorials, you can also deliberately do the wrong attacks to prolong the training session. Don't worry though, in a short while you will be able to repeatedly train with Bernard for as long as you like, so getting a few more XP out of him in this first round isn't giving you a massive advantage. I strongly recommend using this initial training session to improve your sword skill to at least level 3, at which point you'll earn a perk point. During the perfect block tutorial, a move that you should make yourself intimately familiar with by the way, you'll be interrupted, and shortly after the training moves from sword fighting to the archery range. On your way, make sure to pick the Zorn-Ort combo from the sword skill tree, and depending on how confident you are in your fighting skills, you might also want to re-equip your gear, including some slightly more protective stuff. In the archery tutorial, use the time during Bernard's dialogue to practice your aim. You'll notice that the yellow dot marking the center of the screen disappears when you have a bow out. To hit your target, you'll want the tip of the arrow to point slightly to the right of it, while the left side of your hand should roughly line up with it. It's not an exact science. My personal recommendation would be to drop a save just before entering the archery range and practicing a bit to get a good feel for it. For the following duel with Sir Hans, you want to get into double-digit points reliably. Finishing first also earns you 3 bonus points, and that should usually secure the victory. Don't worry, even with the negative shakes perk on hardcore mode, it is quite possible to reliably hit the target with a bit of practice. Immediately afterwards, Capon challenges you to a duel with swords, real ones this time, not the wooden kind. Having a bit of armor on can make this a bit easier, albeit at the price of that armor getting damaged. Use what you've learned with Bernard and play things defensively. Perfect blocks should be at the heart of your strategy in this fight, and can often be followed with a quick stab for a high damage hit to the head. Most importantly though, having access to the Zorn-Ort combo makes the fight significantly easier, and it's a super easy combo to master, because Henry's weapon will automatically follow through to the opposite angle you attacked from. For example, if you attack from the high left, then Henry's next attack will always come from the low right. Coincidentally, high left followed by low right are the first 2 moves in the Zorn-Ort combo, followed by a simple stab that does not need to be aimed. At this point, it should be worth noting that the game registers hits to different body parts, so Zorn-Ort is very good at damaging chest armor since the last stab hits the enemy multiple times, but at the same time, it does not do as much damage as other combos that target the head. In Capon's case, that is doubly true, since his chest is protected by armor, his head meanwhile is not. One more tip, during longer combat encounters, listen for your opponent gasping. This means that they have run out of stamina and won't be quite as able to block your attacks, giving you the perfect opportunity to launch into an attack of your own. Successfully executing a combo also usually leaves the opponent vulnerable to at least one more follow-up hit. All of this can be used to defeat Hans Capon. During the recording for this, I even managed to do so without taking a single hit, but I'll admit that was one of my better performances. Now, if you win, you'll earn Capon's hunting bow, one of the better early game bows in KCD, although you likely won't have the stats to use it yet. After the fight, speak to Bernard again, who will send you to the Bailiff. Take the gate on the right, past the tournament, you can still enroll if you like, and before you go through the last stone archway, have a chat with the Huntsman. He will give you the A Bird in the Hand side quest. Accept it, but don't follow up on it just yet.
It went something like this. What? People keep birds like that in their houses?
You can also trade with him. He sells a few high-level bows and another treasure map. Move along to the Bailiff, who has you join the town guard and sends you to the armory to pick up the appropriate gear. You also get 60 groschen as payment and can ask about learning to read, a very useful skill that Henry does not yet possess, so do so to unlock another quest in Ushitz, which is pretty far away though. If you're confident in your ability to win the tourney, now might also be a good time to nip back to the mill and place a bet with Peshek. If you do go all out, you can only do this a limited number of times before Peshek will no longer accept your bets. Up next, head to the armory to pick up your gear, but instead of speaking to the town guard Nightingale, run back to Bernard to continue training. Once again, I recommend taking off your gear for this. One thing you definitely want to learn are Master Strikes, but you'll need to have at least one weapon skill at level 3 to do so. That should be the case with your sword, so get to it. You'll also need to win a duel against Bernard, and if you apply what already worked against Capon, you should have little trouble. Master Strikes will then be unlocked for all types of weapons, regardless of what you trained with. They are a bit more difficult to time than perfect blocks, but if you can pull one off, it's a great way to deal damage while remaining defensive, and they can almost always be followed up with at least one free hit. On top of that, you'll also want to learn combos, or rather the one that Bernard can teach you. This gives you a second one for free, and this one targets the head with the final strike, so it deals a decent amount of damage. Additionally, you can once again deliberately perform the wrong attacks in this tutorial to earn some extra XP. Once you have learned Master Strikes and the False Edge combo, I recommend you keep training with Bernard a little longer. Don't worry, time actually does not progress while you train, and this is a good and most importantly safe way to reach some useful skill thresholds. However, I strongly advise against practicing with a real weapon, as unlike in the previous training fights, any injuries you sustain from now on will remain and you'll have to spend your own resources to take care of them. So either choose to practice with a wooden sword or go through the combo tutorials a few more times. What you should aim for is level 4 in the strength skill to select both Mule 1 to improve your carrying capacity, as well as Clinch Master, which comes in handy in fist fights, and you might have one in the not-so-distant future. Also, level 4 in Warfare lets you pick up the Bloodletter perk. This is useful because drawing an opponent's blood will cause them a wound that steadily gets worse and can eventually kill them, even if you don't land any further hits. Finally, I highly recommend level 5 in the sword skill. Here you can either pick up the Fehler combo if you plan to continue fighting with a longsword, or grab Blunt Strike if you want to switch to a short sword, perhaps in combination with a shield. You can of course also practice combat with different weapons, although I have personally found the sword skill to be sufficient to carry you through the entirety of the game. Also, perks for maces and axes are only unlocked once you reach level 7 in the respective skill, so you'd need to train for quite some time. Now, should you reach main level 4 during any of this, I recommend picking the Insomniac perk, so that you can stay awake longer and won't have to sleep as much. In a sense, this also reduces the effect that eating heavy foods has on you, as you of course still lose energy from doing so, but your overall energy loss from running around is reduced, so the effect is perhaps not quite as detrimental. Finally, ask Bernard about some work to receive the Ruin activity alongside the task to take out a bandit camp to the east. Bernard, and other NPCs as well, can also give you another form of training, purchasing skill XP for money. In my opinion though, that's not really necessary, especially early on and especially in the combat skills, since it is quite expensive and early skill levels are earned quickly. Now at this point it's time to decide if you want to enroll in the tournament, speak to the heralds, pay the 60 groschen entry fee and fight your way through all 3 combatants. Be warned though, the fights get progressively more difficult. However, even if you lose, the tournament is a great way to further boost your combat skills in a more realistic scenario, while weapons and armor will be given to you, and any injuries you suffer will also be automatically removed after the fights. Alternatively, and this is what I would recommend, it is also possible to complete the tourney and still reach Nightingale in time. The tourney ends at 6 PM and you have until 7 to meet up with the guard. Yes, winning the tournament is tricky, even more so on hardcore mode with all negative perks, but it is possible, and at least the first 1 or 2 opponents should be manageable. I consider 60 groschen a fair price to pay for what are most likely going to be several skill increases, and who knows, you might even beat Black Peter and win the 400 groschen prize alongside the very valuable Lords of Lipa gauntlets. Strategy-wise, playing it defensively and waiting for master strikes followed by hits to the head is probably the safest bet, but again, even that does not guarantee you win. So, back to Nightingale. The tour around Rattay is pretty straightforward. The dispute between the armorsmith and a beggar woman can be solved however you see fit, the speech option is likely the best solution, and eventually it'll be evening and you find yourself ringing the bell and closing the tavern. Another encounter with Hans Capon leads to a fistfight where the Clinch Master perk can prove useful, but regardless of the outcome, you'll be sent hunting on the following morning. With little else to do, you want to spend this night back at the mill, as your patrol with Nightingale has unlocked the Courtship quest. On your way there, stop by the Bailiff to grab the Aquarius quest. Helping hands are needed, and Henry might be best suited to assess the Skalitz folk. The 2 people you need to talk to are likely asleep already, so head to the mill and sleep there until the next morning. If Theresa is still awake when you arrive, you can also talk to her. She has a few things to say about the work assignments too. She is also the one you need to wait for on the next morning, and she likes to sleep in. Oftentimes, she won't get up until somewhere around 9 AM.
What? No, go away.
Once she does, ask her to join you on a walk. Don't worry, despite being told to meet Sir Hans at dawn, he will wait for you until around 10 AM. After completing your stroll along the river, you should be back at the mill in time to run up to the castle and still make it to Capon before he leaves. And even if you don't, he will be back the next morning. If you have the A Woman's Lot DLC installed, decide whether you want to use the hunting trip to level up your bow skills, in that case you might want to leave Mutt at home, or whether you like to bring him along to hunt as many hares as possible. What you should also bring is some food and a melee weapon, just in case. Then meet up with Sir Hans. While it is possible, acquiring a horse before starting this quest is not necessary. Doing so only unlocks a tiny bit of unique dialogue, but it doesn't really speed up the quest, as Hans rides very slowly. Make sure though not to lose him. If you fall too far behind or run too far ahead, you'll have to go all the way to the campsite on foot and won't get the fast travel montage. Once you arrive, follow along with the quest, share as much with Sir Hans as you can for a reputation boost, and then you can already go back to sleep. There's food in the trunk, as well as some arrows and a bow that you can use if you didn't bring one yourself. Once it's hunting time, make sure not to follow Capon into the area where he's hunting, otherwise he will deduct a few groschen from your prize money. Instead, simply take the path up the hill and stay there. For your outfit, you want to be as silent as possible, but don't take off your vambraces just yet, otherwise shooting your bow will hurt you. To win the friendly competition, shooting and looting, just a single hare is enough, but I recommend you try to earn as much XP as you can until you run out of hunting arrows, although it is probably not worth wasting the better ones on this. You can move pretty close to the hares, but since they're so small, they can be tough to hit. With Mutt, hunting hares is much easier, since he kills them instantly, but also does so quicker than you can shoot them. You need to have your Houndmaster skill at level 3 for this to be possible though, but that is easily achieved by just repeatedly praising him until it gets there.
That's my boy.
On hardcore mode, one more challenge you might run into in the forest is getting yourself lost. This is where the game's wait menu comes in handy. Use that to check the time and then check where the sun is. At 8 in the morning, the sun points directly east, at noon, 1 PM, it points south, and at 6 PM it points west. If you're playing without a map marker, you can use this to get a rough idea of where you are and where you need to go. Another trick involves the bird cages you received from the Rattay Huntsman. One more reason why accepting this quest early makes a lot of sense. Simply dropping one on the ground leaves a map marker marking the exact spot where you're currently standing. Once the hunt is concluded, meet up with Sir Hans, and only after receiving your prize money, cook up all the meat at the campfire, as the raw meat is what decides the winner. Then follow him to hunt a boar, and afterwards, to find him, roughly follow the direction he went in until you reach a path. Turning right, you should see where the path exits the forest to the north. What you're looking for is an almost hidden path heading east. There's a grave nearby that you can dig up for some loot, mostly groschen, then follow the path. It curves through the forest for quite a bit, but eventually, down to the right, you'll see some tents, and you can also hear Sir Hans shortly after. Looks like he's gotten himself captured by humans.
What are you gaping at, you blowfly? Never seen a real man before?
Now at this point you have several options on how to proceed. If you're feeling confident, you can take on the two enemies in a fight. One will most likely shoot you with arrows while the other engages in melee. Make sure to keep some cover between you and the archer, and the fight is definitely winnable. Alternatively, you can simply sneak up on Sir Hans from behind and untie him, and then sneak away without risking a fight at all. Even in broad daylight, the humans usually don't notice. A third option presents itself if you wait until nightfall. With the humans asleep, not only will it be much easier to untie Capon and not get noticed, but you can also ambush them, potentially choking one of them out, or killing one before the other gets up, at which point it's a one-on-one duel that you should be able to win. I recommend taking both humans out so that you can loot the camp in peace. There's two chests, one containing the humans' gear, at least all the stuff they don't currently have on them, while the other has potions, goblets and some money. Loot both, then untie Sir Hans and speak to him, which will trigger your return to Rattay and unlock the body achievement. Regardless of whether you untied Capon immediately or waited until nightfall, you'll always be back in Rattay at around 11 in the morning, and your next quest is already waiting for you. The Neuhof stables have been attacked. Since your energy and nourishment levels remain the same as they were when you left off in the human camp, it is advantageous to attack it during the day to conserve some food and energy for what comes next. Since the food in your inventory also does not lose any of its freshness during all of this, the cooked hare meat from your hunting trip should still be good to sell. A quick sprint over to the Rattay Huntsman allows you to get rid of it and make a few groschen.
Alright, so?
If you don't dally, you should be able to make it back to Bernard and his men in time before they ride off without you. Crucially, and this is why I recommend getting on with the main quest line as soon as you get to Rattay, you now have access to your very own horse. And unlike the horse you rode from Skalitz to Tornberg, this one is yours to keep for the rest of the game. That means you can now traverse the map much faster, and you also have another way to store some goods, as your horse has a carrying capacity of almost 200 pounds. Also, guards may search you, but they will not search your horse, making it the ideal place to store your stolen goods. Now, with Bernard and his men, ride to Neuhof. You don't actually have to follow them and can ride ahead at your own pace if you like. Then follow the quest line, inspect the dead horses and bodies, then talk to Zora, then to Jakub standing nearby. A speech skill of 5 or the first aid 2 perk is needed to get him on slightly friendlier terms. The latter is available at main level 6, so speech is likely more attainable. Going past another dead body and a guard, head towards the main stables. Talk to Mark. You should be able to succeed at the charisma check with a charisma of 6 or higher, and Mark will tell you everything you need to know, but speak to Ginger standing by the open gate anyway to complete your objective. While there are more villagers nearby, you won't be able to engage in any meaningful conversation. Depending on how much of a renegade you want to be, either return to Bernard and report your findings, or explore the north of the farm by yourself. From a pushed over sack of flour, tracks and blood splatters are leading through a destroyed gate and into the forest. Follow the small path until you get to another road and another pool of blood.
They went deeper and deeper, for sure.
Another path leads into the next forest section, and if you were fast enough, you'll soon hear voices. 2 bandits are sitting in a clearing, one fatally injured. Take out the other one, or just wait, he will eventually leave once his comrade has perished. Either way, you'll have at least one body to loot. Do so and return to the stables. Talk to Mark or Zora, who will both point you towards Jakub, who will share some information that you should report to Bernard. It should be early afternoon by now, so get on your horse and ride back down the path you came from, but at the first intersection turn right and keep going in that direction at the next crossroads too. Follow the path. After a left turn leads you past a shrine, you'll reach the herbalist. She has a treasure map for sale, as well as several bane potions, very strong poisons that you want to purchase at least one of. There's an alchemy bench down here too that you could in theory use to craft potions and poisons yourself, but for that you'd need some recipes, and to use those you'd need to be able to read. As long as neither of those requirements are met, you only have access to the recipe for Saviour's Schnapps, and it's hardly legible. However, it is also not entirely illegible. You can clearly tell that 1 nettle and 2 belladonna are required, and the symbol at the top also matches the one for wine. It's not too difficult to puzzle together the rest of the instructions, but still, even if you succeed, without further recipes, you'll be stuck making Saviour's Schnapps and not much else. The herbalist herself sells a few recipes, but the good stuff is very expensive, so let's acquire some of them another way and amass some valuables at the same time. Return to the stables, and where you turned right earlier, you now want to go left, in this case straight ahead. Once you get to a small bridge crossing the river, leave the path and ride down the river's left bank until it meets another stream. Here, a grave overgrown with marigold lies in the shadows of some trees. Dig it up to find some valuable treasure, including the recipe for Bane Potion, a strong poison. Cross over that second stream, it might be easier to do so on foot than on horseback, and follow the path you now have in front of you down to the right. This path crosses the river twice and eventually has a small path leading off of it that goes directly to the charcoal burners. The spokesman is who you want to talk to. The speech check is almost impossible to fail, and you now have a new destination to the north. However, before going there, locate the small path heading up the hill and into the woods at the back of the campsite. Follow that path until you reach a burnt-down campsite. The hard-locked chest contains some valuables. The path ends here, but you want to keep going in its rough direction towards the east, always heading uphill. It can be a bit tricky to locate, but you should eventually be able to spot another grave with a wheelbarrow nearby. The treasure inside contains a short sword with the highest stab damage in the entire game, as well as a lucky dice to be used in Farkle and a few other goodies. Head back down to the charcoal burners and follow the road south to the left side of the river. Once you get to a small wooden bridge, leave the path and turn left up the hill, heading for its highest point. Get off the horse and crawl through the bushes. You should soon spot some rocks ahead of you. A small hut is nearby, a dead person outside of it, with a bottle of poison in his hand that you want to grab. Inside the hut is an easy log chest with plenty more valuables, including a noble sword and cuirass, both very good items that remain serviceable until the late game. Head back down the road, cross the bridge and stay left along the river until you reach another small bridge to the left. Be careful now, this bridge leads right into the bandit camp that Captain Bernard wants you to clear as part of the ruin activity. It has quite a few bandits in it, 5 or 6 are possible, so storming in is probably not an option. The mineshaft a little towards the back of the camp makes for a nice choke point if you do decide to fight them all, but even here you can easily get overwhelmed. This mineshaft also has a chest at its back with some valuables. If you want to make life a little easier for yourself, wait until nightfall, sneak up onto the bandit's pot in the middle of camp and drop a Bane potion in it. Move away and wait until morning, and bandits who've eaten the poisoned food will be dead within hours. Unfortunately, this only seems to work semi-reliably. I found that a single Bane potion usually only takes out 2 people, and once they're down, the camp goes on high alert. Still, that's 2 people less you have to worry about. You can also apply poison to your sword or arrows to harm enemies once they've been hit. Alternatively, just come back later once you've leveled up a bit. This is by no means a quest that needs to be completed early. However you decided to deal with the bandits, at this point it's probably time to return to Rattay to drop off some goods, restock and sleep for the night. So go back the small path along the river towards the shrine, take the path going up and follow it. It takes you directly to the eastern city gates. And, well, at this point I think you're perfectly capable of tackling the rest of the game yourself. With a horse at your disposal, plenty of valuables to use or sell, a set of skills that should serve you well both in combat and outside of it, and a good grasp of most of the game's core mechanics, I would say you are well prepared to continue Henry's journey, which has only just begun. Your current quest will soon take you to Ushitz, where you can and probably should learn to read. Visiting the Miller Wojciech along the way also unlocks several interesting thieving missions, and of course, your courting of Theresa will need to be pursued as well. I could go on and tell you about many more of the encounters and challenges ahead and how to best approach them, but this is supposed to be a getting started guide, not a complete walkthrough. And I hope it helped you getting started, or on a hardcore mode challenge run with all negative perks. Above all though, I really hope you enjoyed this guide. It's not the kind of video I usually make, and it takes a long time to research, write, record and edit this kind of content, but I hope the end result contains some useful information, whether you're just starting out or simply want to optimize your next playthrough. So if the video did help you and you enjoyed it, I would be very happy if you could leave a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below if you think I forgot anything, and if you enjoy a well-researched, completionist approach to video games, then my channel might be worth subscribing to. And if you want to support me and my channel even further, you can find some merch over on shop.petecomplete.com, or you can even become a channel member or a Patreon supporter. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.